Can you hear? Why is it not doing it?
They're not doing it.
It's not meant to be recorded, probably.
It is, I think. I don't know why it's not checking. That's not taking
Is it recording?
Anyway, it's right. So go on. So what I'm saying is, I can only speak to you conceptually. I can't speak to you intuitively, because intuition has no language. So you've got the intellectual verbal style, and you've got the intuitive sensuous style. And the intuitive sensuous is your consciousness coming into the phenomenon, not me describe. I can only describe it. So if I said to you lower ribs, that's all I have to say. Then when you treat the patient and go to lower ribs, you can't tell me what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
So the lower ribs is a generality. It's a generality. It's not a specificity.
But basically you are targeting the lower ribs, but what you are doing with the ribs, that's what makes it intuitive process.
The ribs is a generality. It's like me saying, go north. Okay, it doesn't. There's no description of how I'm going north. The how is what you do. The what to treat, the rib area. Okay, how you do that is up to you. I can't do that.
So when you are working on the bottom ribs, you're actually just you're working on that area.
I say ribs, only just as a landmark.
Yeah.
So I'm not actually working on the ribs.
You're just working that general area.
Right. So AT still said that when he was talking about bones,
Yeah.
it wasn't about bones as in treat the bone or the joint. He was giving you just
a
like
landmark.
yeah. It's up to you to fill the rest in.
Okay.
So it's like giving you a little spot on the map.
Yeah.
How to guide you through the.
Yeah. So it's just a generalization. So if I said radiohumeral joint, it doesn't mean treat the radiohumeral joint.
But that means that there is a very nice overlap between conceptual thinking and then the intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you still that's the point, that there is probably still some kind of how to say, not boundaries but guidelines what you should do. I mean,
there's the two extremes.
Yeah.
So conceptual and intuitive is two extremes. They can't exist without the other. One can't exist without the other. It's a bit like up and down or black and white. So, but what we tend to do is only talk about conceptual thinking rather than intuitive. I'm not bringing conceptual thinking down. I'm trying to bring intuitive up.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So that's probably the same thing as if a person, let's say, comes to you having a shoulder problem. So you are gonna treat the patient with the problem, but what are you gonna do with the shoulder? It's gonna be, you might need to work actually on the lower rectus spine, for example.
Or the hip, or the neck. So, but the idea is that the idea is the shoulder. That's the idea. That's the background idea. So your foreground will be anything you need to treat at the time.
Okay, I get it. Basically, then how I would think of it is, if a person has, let's say, a bowel problem, a child or grown up, doesn't matter. How I would do it, I would place my hands on it somewhere to actually get a feel what's happening there. And basically what probably AT still said is that that's where you kind of get a feeling from at the lower ribs, because it kind of circles nicely, and from there you can get a feeling,
Okay.
So it's not my thing.
If you ask other questions or you feel a certain direction, you go somewhere else, it doesn't matter, because the end is the bowel.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere you want.
That's how I feel, like when I try to find if there's a problem and how to solve it, what you actually need to do, just have to place your hands on the patient, maybe closer to that area of problem, or keeping that in mind, and then
that's
somehow
it. Keeping it in mind,
and then the body kind of guides you through what needs
to where
to
you want to be
at.
That's what fills in the context.
So
if I'm going to walk to the station, the train station, I'm keeping that in mind, but I might pop in the shop on the way and get something else, like maybe some mints or a sandwich, but I'm still going towards the train station. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's keeping it in mind.
But from then what I see actually is that it's a very interesting process, to be honest. You do not even need to. Okay, how I feel it is that in a way we're one, but at the same time we're different. Physical bodies.
Right, but that's what Goethe called same difference.
And to make it easier for a person, you might probably be able to actually get a diagnosis of a person just actually whilst looking at it. Not even looking at it, but feeling what is wrong with the person.
Well, 82 you say that while the patient's talking to him, he's ignoring what clothes they're wearing and thinking about structure as they're speaking.
But is he thinking about the structural, or is he?
He's thinking about bones.
Feeling about.
No, well, you know, you can feel talk or you can feel think. Okay, so 82 would say that he's
feeling think.
Yeah, so you're feeling what you're thinking.
So that's what.
But he'd say he would visualize or think about the bones while the patient's talking to him.
Because it's very interesting, because from what I have experienced, and you can actually word it in the same words, you know, like of how it actually is. But what I want to say is that intuition it's what is very, very, like, it's what makes a person to be a good doctor, good osteopath, good at any point. But this connection, like physical one, let's say I take your arm now, it makes me easier to get a feeling of what's happening within her body, but I would probably be able to do it actually without even touching the person.
And I hate to use the word visualization, but what Wittgenstein was saying, and even what Goethe was saying, was there's no mind. First, there's no mind-body separation. Secondly, we're in the world together.
Yeah.
So even if you catch someone's eye on the train, you're looking at someone, and for that split second, you know, there's a sense of lack of detachment. So just for a split second. So it's not as if you're thinking. How can I put this? It's not as if you're making a diagnosis without touching. You don't need to touch the patient.
Yeah.
The key is that your imagination comes into practice, and Goethe called this an organ of another organ of perception, using your imagination.
Probably I would call it personally the creative process. Actually,
Perfect.
That's what it is.
Yeah, perfect. But it's the act of creating.
Yeah,
you're in the act of creating.
How can it be passive creating then?
You can't.
Yeah,
It's
so it is
active process. It's
yeah,
an active
it is
process.
an active. It's like engaging.
But science makes us passive.
Yeah.
Modern science makes us passive.
Yeah.
And it sees it as something as weak.
No, but yeah. Basically, what you're saying, what I understand is, as we are body and mind, like we are body, mind, spirit. We have many layers.
No, don't do that. Don't do layers.
No. But let me finish.
Go on.
Because from what we're studying here, or in the medical background, we are being just thought of being just a layer of the body, and whilst we're treating a body treats a body, that doesn't work as well. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
is that actually there is that other level of what you showed with the spreading out through the right and left brain hemisphere. Is that other bit actually it's much more, let's say, powerful.
But that's the wisdom side rather than practical. Just the analytical, the rational side. The rational side is left brain. The wisdom side would be the right hemisphere. But you can't have one without the other.
But you know, it's so interesting. Like there's this spiritual leader. His name is Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. What he basically said is that what meditation does, it helps the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain function together as a unit. You know. So that's why it might be the fact. For example, what we're talking now about, I don't know how to say it. I understand you purely because I have this experience through my meditation in a way.
Right.
And that's the only, because I know what you're saying because I have experienced it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then you can't put it into words.
Yeah, that's what I want to say, and that's why maybe there should be some.
But what I'm saying is we don't need to go into done Tai Chi and whatnot. We don't need to go into meditation to do this. It's a natural phenomenon. We just need to be attentive. What's destroying it is our cultural social development since the 17th century has made us split things up into parts. So we spend the rest of our time either trying to fill the parts in with spiritual stuff, which is great, or people don't do it at all, become very mechanical. They think they're becoming spiritual and they're not. Okay. So what I'm saying is, what we have to look at is our starting point of our consciousness, our starting point. And culturally, you'll find that immediately when we start to speak about it, there's a problem.
You know, there's another. Do you know Maharishi? Like he was also spiritual master. That he was the one who Beatles went to see like that time in India.
Okay.
So basically, what he said, it was a question as where does the thought come from? somebody asked him. So what he said like the mind is like an ocean in a way, and or let's say that like that consciousness, like that unifying field as he described it, and the thought comes through there, like from there. It comes from there, but a person, we have many layers in it. So for example, we have a layer of ego, which is like identity layer. There is this layer of the mind, where we have the thoughts. We have the intellect as well, which says this is right, this is wrong. We have the mind, emotions, and then we have the body, the breath. So when that thought comes from that infinite field, and if every layer, it has its own distortions. So that pure thought, it goes through that distortion of ego, distortion of intellect, distortion of mind, thought, and then it pops out into the head of the person, and then he thinks that that's the thought that he had. So basically purifying those layers, which helps like meditation, that's why he was teaching meditation and talking about it a lot, is something that helps you to kind of cleanse those layers of each and every part and kind of get you more into unity with the field of that energy that he described as.
So what I'm trying to do is not go down that road. Okay?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that actually it kind of makes sense, because if those layers are not as distorted, so you can function yourself more from that space, from that intuitive level, more, let's say, accurately in a way.
So what I'm saying is that thinking of it in those terms is the problem for me, right? Because what I'm saying is I don't believe in that system of layers, okay?
Yeah.
And the reason I don't believe in it is because if you're going to have unity, you have to have wholeness, and wholeness is not a layer. Wholeness is not a thing. Wholeness is not a location.
No.
Okay. So to describe it in forms of those layers comes back to conceptual thinking again.
But don't you think that those people, like spiritual masters, what they're trying to do is the same thing as you're trying to do when you're writing the case history?
I don't know.
They have their experience,
right,
but they have to put it somehow in words for the common people to get it.
But once you do that, you lose it.
But that's why when you do meditation, let's say, you get it not as a concept, but you get it as an experience.
But you can describe it, and this is what I'm trying to do.
I'm describing it. As you're talking about this common phenomenon, you're using that finite language, which you cannot, express everything fully. You cannot.
Okay.
But you have to use it as a
only
tool to guide you.
Right. But only on the point of view that, rather than describing it as a series of layers or a series of events or a series of anything else, that's all too late.
Yeah.
So I'm saying to people, look, because there is no present. Okay, so because we're always moving, it's always there's no standardization of anything organic. Okay, we do standardize things, but it's false. You're not getting the true essence. You're getting sort of a second-hand phenomenon. So the whole activity, and I don't believe we need meditation. I know that because I've been doing it for a long time. What I'm saying is
you have been doing meditation for a while.
The longest Tai Chi is meditation. I've been doing it 35 years. And now I realise by looking in the history of Western science, there is an equivalent or even more powerful system than Tai Chi, than the Buddhas, than all that stuff, and we just haven't used it.
What is that?
That's Goethean science. That's what I'm talking about. Goethean science, but we just haven't used it.
But that's what I want to say. Maybe you got what the Goethean science wants to say just because you were practicing Tai Chi, which happened to calm your mind into that space where you can get it.
Well, no, because other people get it who don't do that. I mean, quantum physicists get it. They don't do much. They don't do Tai Chi. Now, but I recognise that, and I'm recognising that I don't want to go down the Tai Chi line. I want to make sure that modern science recognises that they have a science of wholeness, which is as powerful, if not more powerful, than the Buddhas or Taoism or any other things. And we're just not using it. And that's what I'm trying to say, that we don't need to go down this spiritual pathway. The word spirit, again, is not a good word. The most spiritual and religious of all our scientists was Isaac Newton. He said that nothing in science can exist without being based on God or spiritualism. They dumped all that bit out of the way. I was looking at that in there. So he acknowledged that
let's say God exists. Basically.
Yeah. And he said you can't have science without religion. Religion underpins science.
Yes.
And so, but they've dropped all that, you know. So, what I'm trying to say is that this idea of catching yourself in the act, because if you don't catch yourself in the act of doing something, then you get a series of ends, and that's where the problem lies. We're always too late. It's a bit like throwing a ball, and then trying to say, look, I've thrown the ball. You go, yeah, but it's gone now. It's been thrown. You want to catch yourself in the throwing of the ball.
I think how to say.
So even if you talk about legs, it makes you passive.
I understand. The challenge what I find here is that seeing in the way that you're describing always brings an effort to a person, because you cannot do it effortlessly in a way.
Only beginning, it's tiring.
It is.
In the beginning, it's like learning anything new. If you learn to play the piano, you know, the later you do it in life, the harder it becomes.
That's what I want to say, but somehow, like from what I have experienced doing meditation, and I'm doing it for now 6 years daily, actually, I get it without, how to say, being tired, without doing that much effort. Do you get what I'm saying?
But and that's because it's a passive act. What I'm saying is that to palpate an intuitive consciousness is an active process, which is hard work. It's really hard work. And that's when I do seminars, and we break up into groups as you do in the technique room. I have to stop them after about a minute because I'll get fatigue, get tiredness. It's an active process, not a passive process. Meditation's a passive process. You're not asleep. You're trying to calm. You're
doing nothing.
Yeah, or no thing. You can't do nothing because you're alive. But you know what I'm saying is that when you're treating somebody, the change in your mode of consciousness from the intellectual verbal to the intuitive sensuous, and to hang on to that as an act of constantly coming and flow, it's really hard work.
But you know,
it gets easier and easier to do it.
But from what I have experienced is actually what meditation helped me to do is to have that connection without actually any effort at all.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. But it has to be an effort to start. If something's new, I remember the late Henry Bortoff said to me, if you go to a lecture and it's no effort, then you already know it. If you go to a lecture and it's hard work, you don't know it. You've learned something. But nobody wants to make the effort anymore and go to a lecture. You know, I say, oh, my lecture's too deep. It's like, well, no, it's not deep. It's the fact that you don't know. You're learning something because it's hard. You've got to think about it as an active process.
So maybe there are two ways of getting into the same point. You see, you can get it through.
But how do you know it's the same point? Because as far as I'm concerned, you're catching it in the act all the time. There's no stopping point. It's what's still called I don't know, still McGowan called it the sort of pregnant point. No, Goethe called it the pregnant point, and McGowan and that lot called it the still point. In cranial, when it's going to that point, but Goethe called it the pregnant point because it's always giving birth to the next layer. It never stops, and it's like catching it on the run all the time. You know, running for a bus and jumping on it, you know, or something that's going past. You jump on the patient moving; it's moving. But if you keep concentrating on the awareness of the patient at the end of your directive attention, it's too late.
That's so interesting because you know, from spiritual knowledge, action and stillness, they come together.
Right.
If you call it in that, you know, phenomenon, because in every action, that's what Sri Ravi Shankar said, there is a stillness. In every action there is stillness.
Which is what martial arts is based on.
And in every stillness there is a lot of action.
Right.
So for example, and that's probably what you can have both.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to explain it on the basis of Western philosophy, not Eastern philosophy.
Yeah.
So and I'm saying that Western philosophy there is a similar system, but we just don't use it or haven't used it.
But
did our patient not turn up?
11:30. Yeah, or you know.
So I understand what you say. We have in West our own system which works, but what I'm saying is that there is another possible system in the East which kind of also works as well,
right.
Just from different way.
Right.
But you might meet up at the same point.
Okay, so I'm trying to develop the Western system.
Yeah. You're pro Western system. That's fine.
But also I'm trying to show the Western scientists,
Yeah.
that their intellectual approach towards medicine, healthcare, whatever, cannot exist without this other part being there.
Yes.
And by not paying attention to this other part, your mechanical reductionist approach is weak.
And what it looks like actually that in the East, actually they have a lot of that, but they need the other part.
Exactly. So it's all back to front. So I'm trying to bring up the intuitive part, not knock down the mechanical part. But the moment you bring up the intuitive part, the mechanical part doesn't make any sense anymore in context with the intuitive. We see it as something that's flowing rather than something that's just a series of chains linked together.
Yes.
And the direction of your thought has to change as well. So
it's so interesting. Do you know
yeah.
like?
I'm just going to check on this patient.